A few years ago, the Leadership Hermosa class did a Discover Hermosa walking tour, and I've been meaning to do it, and finally today is the day that I am doing it. The first site is this windmill you can see behind me, and I've lived here for almost 10 years. I've never actually noticed it before, but apparently it was built by Herman Vetter over 100 years ago, and he was a German immigrant and flower farmer, and he helped Hermosa Beach get incorporated and helped Ocean View, the first Hermosa school, open up. The windmill is not the original location though. Trader Joe's Shopping Center, which used to be Les Bacon Ford. Les Bacon and Marion Bacon had their Ford dealership after World War II, and they were very involved in their community. This stretch of Pacific Coast Highway, the Hughes Aircraft Company transported the Spruce Goose in 1947, which was a giant aircraft. Definitely remember learning about these bells in 4th grade when I took California history, and we went on a field trip to the Santa Barbara Mission. They are the bells, well, this is a replica, but still, that line the El Camino Royale, which was the road that you could walk from mission to mission. In California, they had, each mission was a day's walk apart. So you could start at one mission, walk along the coast, and follow these bells, and at the end of the day, you'd end up at the next mission. This is the Hermosa Beach Community Center. It started out as a school in 1911, but in 1933 there was a huge earthquake, so it got demolished. So they rebuilt it in the Art Deco style, which if you don't know what Art Deco is, it's that style that makes it look like it's from a Batman movie, very typical of the 1930s. And at one point, it was where they filmed the movie Carrie, but now it is the community center that we all know and love. So here I am at Valley/Ardmore/Pier, where the Greenbelt is, and this actually used to be a train depot. Stop 7 continues on the Greenbelt where the Santa Fe Railway was. The railway was built in the 1880s, and in the 1980s was when Hermosa and Manhattan Beaches decided to purchase the land to make a 3.5-mile long jogging path. Here I am in front of Hermosa Beach's City Hall. It was built in 1965. It's located on Valley Drive, and it's where you go if you want to get a Hermosa Beach parking permit or attend a city council meeting. Here I am back at the Greenbelt for our next stop. Behind me you can see Hermosa Beach's biggest apartment buildings, and these actually used to be carnation fields in the 1800s grown by Japanese immigrants who had come here to build the Cross-Continental Railroad. Stop 10 is at Hermosa Valley School, where they have a couple mulberry trees that were grown to feed silkworms in the 1800s, which is something that the state of California actually paid people to do because we were so excited to find out China's secret of how to make silk. Here I am in the Vaughn Shopping Center, where Hermosa Beach had one of its 4 silk factories during the 1920s. It's close to the Santa Fe Railway, which helped them ship different goods around the world. I'm at stop 12 on the Discover Hermosa Historic Landmarks tour in front of the Marineland Trailer Park, but it used to be the Hermosa Auto Park and Bungalow City campground, where people for just $40 a month could stay in bungalows, or for even less they could stay in their car. And that was during the 1920s. Stop number 13 is this big red barn across the street from me. And it was actually initially built to hold a church. Then in the 70s, the church moved out and Mrs. Gooch's Natural Food Market moved in. But then in the 90s, Whole Food Markets bought out the Mrs. Gooch's chain. And so then Stars Antiques moved in, and that's what it is today. Behind me is the Bijou Theater, or Metropolitan Building. It was built in the 1920s. Apparently someone had the idea that they should put a theater and a bank in the same building, and it was a big hit. So they built it. It has a lot of intricate detail in the stonework, both on the outside and the inside. During the 1990s though, there was talk about tearing it down to retrofit it for the American earthquake standards. However, the Hermosa Beach Historical Society intervened. Maybe don't stand too close to it during an earthquake. Behind me is another bank building that was built in the 1920s. It was the National Bank of Hermosa Beach, and since it was a national bank, that means they were able to print their own money. So it'd be like an American $10 bill, but it actually said National Bank of Hermosa Beach on it. Spot 16 is where the Palmilla building now is. It's actually owned by the Kieran family. So Ted Kieran, he had actually immigrated here from Ireland, and he got married, and he and his wife opened a bakery there, and between 1911 and 1926, while they were living there, they had all of their kids in that building. He also was one of the pioneers for the Surfer Walk of Fame. Behind me is spot number 17. It was the Ocean Aquarium. Its heyday was during the 40s and 50s when it was kind of like SeaWorld in that it had animals that would do shows, especially some sea lions. But then they actually brought this giant whale that had been killed by a ship and they embalmed it and they had it at this aquarium until Les Bacon Ford bought it and they brought it up to their store in PCH where it remained until someone threw a cigarette in it and caught it on fire. Also, there is a lady named Dolores Eleanor Fisher who worked at this aquarium and she gave people scuba diving lessons. And she in the 50s set the record for being underwater the longest. She was underwater for 55 hours and 39 minutes. Soon after, her and her husband actually moved to Florida and became real-life treasure hunters. Spot number 19. It was built in 1904 and was 500 feet made out of wood at the time, but then in 1913 a big storm came in and destroyed the pier, so they rebuilt it and made it 1,000 feet out of concrete. And here where the lifeguard area and restrooms is where the Chamber of Commerce and library and some other facilities were. Over the years it kind of got damaged, so in the 60s they wanted to replace it. So what they did is they found these oil companies that wanted to drill offshore, and the oil companies were like, all right, we'll give you $300,000 if you let us have an election to see if we can do offshore drilling. So the oil companies gave the city the money and the city had the election and the residents voted no. So the city got to keep the money and build the pier and not have oil drilling. And that 1965 pier is basically what you see today and what was in the movie La La Land. We'll be talking about early Hermosa Beach, specifically the Strand, which is that cement path that you see all these people walking on. The initial survey for the Strand was done in 1901, and they decided to build a 2-mile stretch of wooden boardwalk. When the City of Hermosa Beach was incorporated in 1907, it received the, at the time, wooden boardwalk as part of the deed. In 1914, they began replacing the wooden boardwalk with cement because the wooden boardwalk kept getting washed away, and in 1926, they had finished replacing the whole thing with cement. Here I am at spot number 21 on the tour called the Sand and Surf Club. The Sand and Surf Club began building in this area in the 1920s. They built an 8-story building which had recreational activities on the bottom floors and hotel rooms on the top floors. The club grew to over 1,000 members and in 1929 merged with the Los Angeles Athletic Club. Then during the 30s, the Biltmore Hotel acquired the premises, and this whole time they really wanted to fence off part of the beach to make it a private beach. However, the City of Hermosa did not let them. After World War II, the building began getting really run down as it passed hands from various owners. And then in 1966, the City of Hermosa Beach acquired the building. However, it just went from bad to worse. So the building was demolished in 1969, and for 20 years, the people of Hermosa Beach argued over what to do with the area. Then in 1992, the city voted to have the area turn into a park. However, they continued arguing. So then in 1994, they again voted, and again, people want to turn it into a park. So Joe and Nancy Noble donated $90,000 to build the park, and that's what we now know as Noble Park. Here I am at spot number 22, the final stop of the Izzy Travel Discover Hermosa tour created by Leadership Hermosa Beach in 2019. There was the Santa Fe freight line that we talked about earlier that ran along what's now the Greenbelt, but there was also the Pacific Electric red cars that went around Los Angeles and were actually the largest electric railway in the 1920s. It made 5 stops along Manhattan Beach, behind me where the Strand is now, and Hermosa Avenue. Unfortunately, in the 1940s, when people bought more cars, it started to decline, so they went ahead and retired it. Then in 1960, they cleaned the cars and dropped them into the ocean along the Hermosa Beach Pier in order to create an artificial reef and stabilize the pier. They did the same in Redondo Beach. So that's it for the Discover Hermosa tour. If you would like to do the tour yourself, make sure you check out the website, izzy.travel. And they also have tours for other places around the world.